Jimmy Fallon dropped his cards. Emma Stone froze. No one in the studio could have predicted what was in that photograph. The Tonight Show was rolling like any other Tuesday night. The band played, the audience laughed, and Jimmy Fallon delivered his monologue with the energy of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Emma Stone was the guest, charming, funny, promoting her latest film. Everything was going exactly as planned. Until it wasn't. Halfway through the interview, Jimmy reached under his desk. He pulled out a small photograph. His smile faded. Emma's eyes locked onto the image. Her hand moved to her mouth. The studio fell silent. The roots stopped. The cameras kept rolling. And for the first time in Tonight Show history, no one knew what to say. What was in that photograph? And why did it have the power to stop one of the biggest talk shows in America dead in its tracks? Stay with us, because what happens next will remind you why television, at its best, is more than entertainment. It's connection. It's truth. And sometimes, it's healing. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. 2 hours earlier, Studio 6B at 30 Rockefeller Plaza was buzzing with the familiar chaos of pre-show preparation. Producers ran through cue cards, lighting text-adjusted spots, and the audience filed into their seats with the electric anticipation that only live television can create. Jimmy Fallon sat in his dressing room, reviewing notes for the Emma Stone interview. He'd known Emma for years. They had an easy chemistry, the kind that made for great TV. The plan was simple: talk about her new movie, play a silly game, maybe sing something. Standard fare. Fun. Safe. But then a production assistant knocked on his door. "Jimmy, there's someone here who needs to speak with you. Says it's urgent." Jimmy looked up, confused. "We're on in 40 minutes. I know. But she says it's about Emma Stone. And she's not leaving." Jimmy's instinct was to say no. The show had a rhythm, a structure. You don't mess with that. But something in the assistant's voice made him pause. He put down his notes and followed her out into the hallway. Waiting near the stage entrance was an elderly woman, maybe in her 70s, with silver hair and red-rimmed eyes. She was clutching a worn envelope and a photograph. When she saw Jimmy, she stood up, hands trembling. "Mr. Fallon, I'm so sorry to do this," she said, her voice shaking. "My name is Margaret. Margaret Chin. I need your help." Jimmy stopped. He could see this woman was barely holding it together. "Are you okay? Do you need medical attention?" She shook her head. "No. I need you to give something to Emma Stone. Tonight. On the show." Jimmy glanced at his watch. 38 minutes. He should have walked away. Should have handed her off to security or a publicist. But he didn't. "Tell me why." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Because my daughter is dying. And Emma Stone doesn't know it yet." Jimmy stopped mid-joke. The entire studio froze. Margaret explained quickly, her words tumbling over each other. Her daughter, Sarah, had been Emma Stone's college roommate at NYU. They'd been inseparable for 3 years, two aspiring actresses sharing a tiny apartment in the East Village, going to auditions, surviving on ramen and hope. Then life took them in different directions. Emma's career skyrocketed. Sarah kept trying, kept auditioning, but the roles never came. Eventually, she left acting behind and became a teacher. They'd lost touch over the years, not intentionally, just the way people do when life gets complicated. 6 months ago, Sarah was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She had weeks, maybe days. And in those final days, she told her mother one thing. "I wish I could talk to Emma one more time. Just to tell her how proud I am. How much those years meant to me." Margaret pulled out the photograph. It was old, faded, taken on a disposable camera. 2 young women, barely 20, sitting on a fire escape in New York City, laughing at something off camera. One of them was unmistakably a younger Emma Stone. "Sarah kept this photo on her nightstand for 20 years. Margaret whispered. "Even when she stopped acting, Even when she thought Emma had forgotten her, she kept this. Because those were the happiest years of her life. Jimmy stared at the photograph. Then he looked at Margaret. Where is Sarah now? St. Vincent's Hospital. She's too weak to travel. She doesn't even know I'm here. I couldn't let her go without trying. Jimmy Fallon had 35 minutes until showtime. He had producers, writers, a network breathing down his neck. He had a show to run, a schedule to keep. But he also had a choice. He took the photograph. Give me your number, he said. And stay close to a phone. The show started on time. The monologue was flawless. The audience was hot. And when Emma Stone walked out to thunderous applause, everything seemed normal. She and Jimmy fell into their usual rhythm, jokes, stories, laughter. The kind of interview that feels effortless because both people genuinely enjoy each other's company. But underneath his desk, Jimmy's hand kept brushing against the photograph he tucked into his jacket pocket. He kept thinking about Margaret, sitting somewhere backstage. About Sarah, lying in a hospital bed. About a friendship that time had buried but never erased. He had a choice. He could finish the interview as planned. Send Emma on her way. Mail the photo later with a nice note. It would be easier. Safer. Less risky. Or he could do something that had never been done on The Tonight Show. Behind the scenes, Fallon made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. 12 minutes into the interview, right after Emma finished a funny story about her dog, Jimmy did something that made every producer in the control room sit up straight. He stopped smiling. He put down his cue cards. He turned to face Emma directly, his expression suddenly serious. Emma, I need to tell you something, he said quietly. And I'm sorry to do this on live television, but I think it's important. Emma's face changed. The laughter drained away. Okay. Jimmy reached into his pocket and pulled out the photograph. He held it up, just high enough for Emma to see, but not the cameras. Do you remember this? Emma leaned forward. Her eyes went wide. Her hand flew to her mouth. The color drained from her face. Oh my God! She whispered. Is that me and Sarah? The studio fell silent. The Roots, who'd been quietly vamping in the background, stopped playing. The audience, sensing something real was happening, leaned forward in their seats. Jimmy nodded. It is. And I need to tell you about Sarah. For the next 6 minutes, live television became something else entirely. Jimmy told Emma about Margaret. About Sarah's cancer. About the years Sarah had kept this photograph, even when acting didn't work out, even when life took her somewhere else. She wanted you to know, Jimmy said softly, that those years with you were the best of her life. That she's proud of you. That she never stopped being your friend, even when you couldn't be in touch. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She tried to speak, couldn't, tried again. Where is she? St. Vincent's Hospital. Her mother is here backstage. Emma stood up. Just stood, right in the middle of the interview, live on national television. Can I go see her? Right now? Jimmy looked at her. Then he looked at the camera. Then he did something that had never happened in the 50-year history of The Tonight Show. He took off his tie. It was a small gesture, but everyone in that studio understood what it meant. The show was over. The format didn't matter. The schedule didn't matter. What mattered was in front of them, raw and real and impossible to ignore. Yeah, Jimmy said. Let's go. But this is the moment no one in the studio, and no one watching at home, ever saw coming. The cameras kept rolling as Jimmy walked Emma off the stage. As Margaret emerged from backstage sobbing and embraced Emma. As Emma whispered, I'm so sorry I lost touch. I'm so sorry. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent. Some were crying. Others just sat, witnesses to something that felt too intimate for television but too important to look away from. A production assistant brought Emma her phone. She called the hospital, right there, standing in the wings of The Tonight Show. The entire studio could hear her half of the conversation. Sarah? Sarah, it's me. It's Emma. I'm coming right now. I'm on my way. I love you. I love you so much. I never stopped loving you. And then she was gone, rushing out the stage door with Margaret, heading to St. Vincent's Hospital just 10 blocks away. Jimmy stood alone on the stage. The band was silent. The audience was silent. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jimmy picked up his tie from the desk. He held it up, looked at it, and placed it carefully over the photograph that Margaret had left behind. "We'll be right back," he said quietly. They went to commercial. But when they came back, Jimmy didn't do another segment. He didn't bring out another guest. Instead, he sat at his desk and spoke directly to the camera. "I've been hosting this show for 10 years, he said. "I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've played thousands of games. I've tried to make you laugh every single night. But tonight, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about connection." He picked up the photograph. This is a picture of two friends. Two young women who had dreams and hope in each other. Life took them in different directions. One of them became famous. One of them didn't. But that didn't change what they meant to each other. It just made it harder to stay in touch. Jimmy's voice cracked slightly. We all have people like that. People we loved, people who mattered, people we lost track of because life got busy or complicated or just away from us. And we tell ourselves we'll reach out someday. We'll make that call. We'll send that message. He looked directly into the camera. Don't wait. Don't let someday turn into never. Because the people who loved you when you were nobody, who believed in you before anyone else did, who saw you at your realest, those people are treasures. And life is too short and too fragile to let them go without a fight. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The show ended differently that night. No big musical number. No comedy bit. Just Jimmy, sitting at his desk, holding a photograph of two friends who'd found each other again, just in time. The next morning, the internet exploded. The clip went viral. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. People sharing their own stories of lost friends, of regrets, of second chances. But the real story happened quietly, in a hospital room at St. Vincent's. Emma Stone spent the next 3 days at Sarah's bedside. They talked about everything, the old apartment, the terrible auditions, the dreams they'd had, the lives they'd lived. Emma brought photos, videos, memories. She held Sarah's hand and told her, over and over, "You were always my friend. Always." Sarah Chin passed away on a Friday morning, with Emma sitting beside her, still holding her hand. At the funeral, Emma gave the eulogy. She talked about the girl she'd met in an NYU dorm room, the friend who taught her that success wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about being seen by someone who truly knew you. She talked about the photograph, about the fire escape, about two girls who believed they could change the world. And she thanked Jimmy Fallon for giving her something she could never get back otherwise: time. One last conversation. One last goodbye. 3 weeks later, Emma returned to The Tonight Show. Jimmy brought out 2 chairs, placed them center stage, and sat down beside her. No desk between them. No cue cards. Just 2 people talking. "Thank you," Emma said simply. "For stopping the show. For taking that risk. For caring about someone you'd never met." Jimmy shook his head. "You don't thank someone for doing the right thing. You just do it." He pulled something from his pocket. The photograph. But now it was in a small frame, with an inscription on the back. "For the friends who stay with us, even when we can't stay with them. Sarah's mother wanted you to have this," Jimmy said. "But I wanted to add something." He reached into his other pocket and pulled out his tie, the one he'd taken off that night. "I'm donating this to be auctioned off for pancreatic cancer research, in Sarah's name. Because what happened that night wasn't just about one person. It was about all the Sarahs out there. All the friendships we take for granted. All the time we think we have but don't." The audience stood. Not because they were told to, but because they couldn't help it. It wasn't applause for entertainment. It was applause for humanity. And in that moment, The Tonight Show became something more than a talk show. It became a reminder that television, at its best, isn't about perfection or polish. It's about truth. It's about moments that can't be scripted or predicted. It's about someone with a platform choosing to use it not for laughs, but for love. Jimmy Fallon kept that photograph on his desk for the rest of his career. Not as a prop, but as a reminder. A reminder that the most important interviews aren't always with the biggest stars. Sometimes they're with people the world will never know. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do on television is stop the show and let real life in. Because in the end, that's what separates good television from unforgettable television. Not the jokes. Not the games. But the moments when someone chooses humanity over format. When connection matters more than content. When a host becomes more than an entertainer, he becomes a bridge between hearts that thought they'd never meet again. That night, Jimmy Fallon didn't just host a show. He gave someone their final gift. And in doing so, he reminded millions of us that it's never too late to reach out, to reconnect, to tell someone they mattered. The tie, the photograph, the memory, they all became part of Tonight Show history. But the real legacy lives in every person who watched that night and picked up their phone to call an old friend. Every viewer who decided not to wait for someday. Because sometimes, the most important show you'll ever do is the one that breaks all the rules.